Hello, welcome to Secure Talk, your trusted source of information on the latest threats, trends, tools, and technology related to cybersecurity and compliance.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Secure Talk. My name is Mark Schreiner, and I'll be your host for this episode of Secure Talk. Today, I'm going to be talking with Yegor Sak, who is the co-founder of Windscribe, a free VPN and ad blocking system that has over 43 million active users. We're going to be talking to Yegor a little bit about his background. I mean, he came originally, I think, from Belarus and immigrated to Canada, started a business from a pretty young age, and in addition to Windscribe, is involved with the co-founding of another company that we'll talk about. So we've got a lot of things here to touch on. But before we do that, let's say hi to Yegor. Yegor, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing quite all right.
Good. Where are you at?
I'm from Toronto. We're based in Toronto primarily. Most of our staff are in Canada or somewhere around Toronto. But ever since COVID, we've kind of expanded the reach.
Yeah, right. And I'm assuming most people are working remote these days, yeah?
Yeah, no, pretty much everyone exclusively works remotely. And we do have an office. I'm actually sitting in the office right now. I'm one of the few people that actually makes the trek from home to the office. I personally can't really work at home. It's too distracting. And, a couple of people also feel that way, but, our office is pretty much a ghost town right now.
Yeah, I have the same challenge. I work remotely, but the company I work primarily with is based in Budapest. So a commute really isn't an option for me from Seattle to Budapest. So I've got to kind of put up with all the annoyances of the distractions at home. But then again, with every everything's a trade-off. So I don't actually miss sitting in traffic or doing all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I know traffic is a thing, but honestly, I'd rather sit for like an hour in traffic than work from home.
Must be. It's that bad, huh? No,
Yeah.
seriously. No, I don't know. You get to that whole level of our ability to focus and concentrate. Sometimes I can go to Starbucks and I can concentrate more effectively there, even in a noisy, crowded Starbucks than I can at home, just because I'm able to tune out all those other things that people I don't know. But if I hear my kids talking about some random thing, all of a sudden I get sucked into the conversation, and of course there's the kitchen right there with all the temptation that it has. So.
No, yeah, absolutely. I don't have any kids, but I do have a wife and a dog, and that's a lot of distractions just with those two. And you're never really if you work from home, you're pretty much never really at work and never really at home. You're kind of this weird limbo state. And I kind of like to separate the two, even though I still work from home regardless when I am home. But it's just nice to have that separation most of the time.
Absolutely. Well, hey, before we jump into Windscribe, maybe you can set the stage and talk a little bit about your background, because you were born in Belarus, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I'm originally from Belarus. My parents in the 90s decided that they don't want to live in that country anymore, and rightfully so. Which a lot of people learned about the existence of Belarus and our crazy president over there in the last, I guess, couple of years, especially very recently with the whole Ukrainian thing. Him being one of the few supporters of the Russian government. I mean, it's not a really great place to live if you want to actually do anything, entrepreneurial. Because I mean, the government there is extremely strict. Once you get big enough, a bunch of dudes will come to your house and be like, okay, well, we're just going to take 80% of what you make.
Our share, yeah.
Yeah. And if you say no, you'll be in prison, right? And that's best case scenario, right? So my parents moved to Canada about in 1999. I think I was 11 or 12 at that point. Yeah, and I've been in Canada ever since.
And when did your interest in the internet and coding and all that start?
Pretty much as soon as I came to Canada, because I didn't have internet in Belarus. We had a computer, an offline computer for probably the last 2 years of me being in Belarus. But I mean, I didn't really use it for anything productive. It was just, video games for the most part. But, I was 10. And without internet, it's kind of hard to, learn anything. The only thing you got is, what you can bring on a floppy disk, right? And not a lot of variety over there. But as soon as we got internet and, I discovered that, hey, there's all this information out there and you can literally teach anything to yourself without, going to school. Even though I did go to school after, but, internet turned out to be a really great tool for just education and discovery and figuring out what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I'm curious because the former Soviet Union and modern day Russia is kind of well known and recognized for their STEM programs. And I mean, you were there at a relatively young age, but did that have any impact on your kind of, you know, decision to well, I mean, you're into games, but ultimately, did that help you when you actually started using the computers for developing things?
No, not at that time. Being a kid, I was not aware about any of those things. Even though, like, my dad's friend, he kind of operated a kind of software development company. Then he kind of moved it out of Belarus because he had to, because he got
Right.
big enough. But that was not really on my radar at the time. I was just a dumb little kid.
Yeah, it's funny because so he moved his software company. Uh, I actually did hear you talk on another podcast, and something you said about bricks and mortar companies versus IT kind of or intellectual property based companies. One of the advantages if you're IP based is that you can pick up and go. And for example, I mean, I don't know if you know who Yuval Noah Harari, he wrote the book *Sapiens*. He talks about if China were to invade Silicon Valley, what would they get? They would get everybody who's there would just leave. They'd hop on a plane and go to Mumbai or wherever, right? And I was curious with your dad's friend's software business, was that an option where they just pick up and move to another place?
Like, honestly, he moved honestly, like, in the early or mid 90s
Okay.
at that point. So I'm not really privy to the true reasons for that move. But I mean, you're right. Brick and mortar businesses are a lot easier to take. You just come in, you take it. Staff are there. It's not really hyper technical work.
These
Anyone
oil
for the
wells are
most part.
ours now, right?
Well, I mean, there's no oil wells in Belarus, but any kind
Yeah,
of non-tech business, it's really easy to take. I
yeah.
did have an office in Belarus for one of my for my previous projects before. We kind of started up a little satellite office to do a whole bunch of dev work for kind of like a cloud storage thing that I was kind of a contractor out to build out. And we did a whole full-blown office, and that's where I learned all these kind of the different, like, oh, it's nicer to be a software company because the government is not gonna touch you, at least for now. But in order for you to be quote unquote untouchable for that period of time and have extremely favorable tax regime, you effectively have to open up all your books to the government. They see everything that you do. They see all the money flows, everything. And if they ever change their mind in the future, you
Right.
have not you have no recourse basically, because you are an open book to them, and then they can dictate whatever policy that they wish, right? And
Well,
that satellite office has been shut down since then. And but the project that kind of came out of it, after we stopped working on the cloud storage thing, that was a massive failure. Much like most things I tried, to be honest. Like most things fail. Like 98% of the stuff you've tried will be a colossal waste of time, but you'll learn something in the process, and that's pretty much the biggest takeaway from trying. But yeah, that team kind of decided to build their own project. I kind of financed it for the year, and they end up launching a startup which still exists today. They're called I think they were called Battle Me at that point. Now I think it's called Rap Fame. It's basically like a battle rap application where you can battle rap like other people in the world. They're pretty big. I think they have like over like 20 or 30 million users at this point.
wow, that's impressive. Yeah, it's funny because I always tell my boys and anybody I work with, as long as you learn from your mistakes, then there is some value there, right? So it's really important. But one thing I'm curious about is I have noticed that some people they have this entrepreneurial spark, and a lot of people don't. And you had it from a very young age. As soon as you moved to Canada, you started creating websites. And I think one of them was you created a video where you were smashing iPhones or something. But
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't just a single video. It was kind of like a series of things. I think I was like, I don't know, 17 at the time, and iPods were all the rage. People were like really obsessed with them. So myself and a buddy of mine, we kind of like, hey, what if we made a little website and kind of like got people to donate money so we can go and buy this iPod, and then kind of open it up right in the store and just destroy it immediately after purchase. Uh, I know right now it seems like, okay, what's the big deal? But at that time, there's no YouTube, there's no streaming, there's no social media. The internet was a very different place, right?
Right.
And we created this website, and it got linked on all these different places. We raised, I think we raised the money to purchase this iPod, I think, in a few weeks. We did the video. It was very well received. I've done like a whole series of interviews at that time with like TV stations and radio stations, and ended up in the Toronto newspaper as well, in the lifestyle section. It was pretty cool, when you're like a young kid. Like there was like a lot of attention. So we're like, hey, cool. So what do we do next? Well, I mean, like the Xbox 360, PS3, and the Nintendo Wii were coming out shortly after. So we're like, hey, let's do those things as well. So we kind of like set up the 3 websites. We've raised all the money, I think, in less than 24 hours for all the projects. And then at that point, we were kind of like faced with a conundrum. It's kind of like people are literally sending us money. We already raised what is what we actually needed to facilitate this project. So it was kind of like, do we become greedy, or do we just stay honest? We decided to stay honest. We kind of cut off the donations as soon as we raised whatever we actually needed. Created those, waited until those actual products were released. We were, camping out in line to be, the first ones to purchase them. So a buddy of mine had to like camp out in front of a Best Buy for, I think, 2 days in a tent for the first one, and it was like about a day for the second project. But yeah, we created those videos. I mean, around that time, hosting video, it was really annoying because there's no YouTube, right? So at that point,
Right.
you had to like contact all these different what they're called mirror websites. Be like, hey, can you mirror my little video file here so I can distribute it to a few million people, right? And you had to have all these partnerships, and then one day I got an email. Honestly, I forget what the guy's name was, but he's one of the founders of YouTube. He's like, hey, we have this new service called YouTube. You can upload your video. There's no bandwidth cost. It's all free. We'll take care of everything. And we did. And I think the Smash My PS3 video was one of the top videos on YouTube at that time, back when they had like a top listing. We were like in the top 10 YouTube videos of all time. So that's pretty cool.
Is it still up there?
Uh,
Still on
it,
YouTube?
all those videos are still on YouTube. The PS3 one, ironically, was like a few months after the project. After we released everything, Sony submitted a DMCA complaint for the video, so it was actually taken down for a few years. And then a few years ago, I noticed this, and I'm like, oh, I should probably submit a counterclaim. And they did restore it because there was no actual copyright infringement in the video.
I'm looking at YouTube right now, and I see Smash My PS3, 7.4 million 7.4 million views, and the poster is a guy named Yegor. So that was 4 years ago. So all those years that you missed because otherwise the numbers would be probably 3 or 4 or 5 times that. That's
But
amazing, man.
potentially, but I mean, like most of the views were early on, like in the first, several weeks. 7 million views in early days of YouTube. That was a lot. That would be like, 1 billion views right now, right? In terms of, the sheer size.
I mean, we're getting kind of really off topic, but I remember one time because I used to brainwash my kids and tell them all the right music to listen to, and I was like, check this out, boys, and I showed them this Led Zeppelin song, and I was like, check it out, like 12 million views, and my youngest son goes, what about the Green Froggy video? And I was like, the Green Froggy video? Green Froggy had like 80 million views, man.
Yeah, I think Baby Shark has over 1 billion or something like that.
Nope. So
Yeah.
I was no longer the house DJ after that. Do you know who Mr. Beast is?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't on my radar. My boys are like, oh, how could you not know? But I was listening to Joe Rogan, and he had him on, and the guy is actually pretty cool, and he seems to be pretty humble, pretty grounded, pretty young, like 23 years old. But the reach that his videos, is just amazing. But his background, where he said when he first started, he was just uploading stuff, and that's all he did. He just obsessed about YouTube every day. And then he found these 3 other people that were similar to him, and they would talk every single day to try to figure out how to get more views. And they all started hitting about 100 million views right within a couple months of each other. It's I don't know, pretty interesting story.
Yeah, no, I mean, I too could have been a YouTube celebrity because, we were like, okay, cool. Now this is done. We had all those websites. I mean, there was a financial component to that as well, because I mean, to watch the video, also like slightly before, because YouTube came kind of like towards the end of the projects.
Mhm.
Early on to watch the video, you had to go on our website, right, and click on all those mirrors and watch it, right, and around those mirrors there would be ads, right? So at that point, there was like a platform called Yahoo Advertising Network, I think it was called. It was kind of like very similar to what Google Ads are now, kind of
Mhm.
a contextual advertising. I think they were the first ones to market, and they paid like ridiculous amounts of money per click at the time.
Wow.
I think at lunchtime, like they'll pay you like $2 for like any click on your website, and you could also like skin those ads to kind of look like parts of the website. So I mean, we kind of at that, especially when you're super young. I think it was like already 18 by that point. I think we got maybe 50,000 US in ad revenue in like a few weeks during the spike when everybody wanted to see that video. So that was pretty cool. It's like, oh, hey, like all this like free money raining from the internet. Maybe I should continue doing something like this.
Well, so then and did that lead? How did that actually evolve to the founding of Windscribe?
Oh, I mean, I think there's about 10 to 15 years in between that. So at that point, I was just making very like basic static little websites, just basic, here's an HTML page with some CSS, right? Not a lot of programming involved because I was not a programmer. We were planning to do this iPhone smashing video because iPhone was coming out just shortly after that, but we would have to like fly to New York because it was launching in the United States, and we're in Canada, and we kind of wussed out. We're like, oh, we'll probably get beaten up there, so we basically just didn't go. Like we literally wussed out to go to New York to smash this iPhone at launch date, and I guess that was the end of my YouTube career at that point. So I was kind of like, okay, cool. I mean, let's figure out something else that's interesting. At that point, I was also operating a few of the like random like what I call like humor portals. Which is just basically collections of like funny pictures, funny videos, kind of like eBaum's World style. I don't know if that name means anything to you.
It's on my list now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. eBaum's World used to be like the entertainment portal in the early 2000s, like 2001-ish or so. So it's literally just like here's funny stories, jokes, pictures, like stuff that I liked. So I was doing a whole bunch of that type of stuff, and I was like posting on forums for where other what was called back then webmasters would post who ran similar kind of websites. Right, so to kind of like share tips, exchange traffic, buy ads from each other to like, get a little bit of traffic from them. You send some traffic back to them as well. But what I then realized is like most of those webmaster forums kind of like were broken down into two categories. Half the people were operating like funny stuff, and the other half of the people were operating porn sites at that point. And by porn,
Mm.
I mean it's not like the porn of today. It was kind of like these walls of pictures, and you click on like different naked ladies, and then they take you to other websites where you can see like a 60-second clip before asks you to pay some money to subscribe to something. And I'm like, okay, cool. I mean, I'm like 19 at that point. I'm like, I like naked ladies. Maybe I should do a site like that too. So then I'm like, okay, there was a bunch of software available to like operate those websites, but it was all kind of garbage. All those sites look the same, like they're literally indistinguishable from each other. Same bad user experience, I would say. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just gonna learn some programming and make a site like that from scratch. And I read some books, learned programming, built a site like that from scratch. And I think within a year of me actually launching it, I had the biggest site on one of these fairly sizable webmaster forums from everyone else. That was it was a lot of work, but I had it like fully automated at that point where my work the work that I had to do like day to day was consisted about maybe like 20 to 30 minutes of just literally going into my admin panel and approving and denying submissions that were submitted to my website, literally
Mhm.
just judging porn like for half an hour a day. uh, you know uh, it was pretty great because I mean at that point that site was generating close to 40,000 US dollars per month. I had
Wow.
no employees. I set up everything myself, operated everything myself. So those were kind of like the heydays, I guess, early on, early 20s. I had a lot of spare time, as you can imagine, because I mean, half an hour work per day is not a lot of time to be for the the benefits that kind of
Right.
come in the mail in the form of checks. So I had like a lot of spare time to do other things. So I went to university. I'm like, oh, my parents were always like, oh, why don't you go into school? I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'll go get a degree. Why not? I have a lot of spare time. So I did do that. I went to U of T, which is the University of Toronto. Did nothing related to computer science whatsoever. Mostly like political science and geography. Got a degree in that. At the same time, school doesn't take a lot of your time, especially if you don't really study and you're kind of like, oh, exam is coming up. I'm just gonna brush up on Wikipedia and get a B because I wasn't really taking it seriously. So I passed all my courses. I still had a lot of spare time. So I'm like, okay, what else do I like? Oh, well, I like aviation. So I went to flight school, got a pilot license at the same time. That was kind of a lot of fun. Actually put it on hiatus for many years. I'm actually coming back to aviation right now. I'm going out to the flight school, rent a plane, flying around. It's really fun. But
Cool.
yeah, yeah. So
Any particular favorite types of planes?
I mean, the only thing you can rent in flight schools it's like Cessna 172 for the most part. Some other places you can get like a Diamond 40 or something like that. Those are nice, but
Mhm.
primarily Cessnas.
Okay. Any dreams of one day working up to a jet?
I mean, jets are it's like the idea of a jet is cool, but they're not fun to fly, right? Jets are like if you need to go from point A to point B and you're gonna sit in the back and get wasted, right? But it's not it's probably not.
Oh
I've
well,
never
the
yeah.
jets that I have in mind is, and the reason I ask this is, well, obviously the Top Gun's out and everybody's
Oh
loving
yeah.
that, but then we just had the Seafair hydroplane races and air show out here, and so we had, amongst other things, we had the Blue Angels flying over every day, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and I'm kind of jaded and cynical, but it's still pretty impressive to see them fly over in formation.
Yeah, no, that stuff is like really cool. It's just like getting access to those planes is like nearly impossible. I mean, they do, and I mean, people do sell like, older MiGs, and
Yeah.
you can get like demilitarized F-16s in the United
Dude,
States.
you got to have a connection in Belarus, man, that could hook you up, dude.
Well, honestly, like even if I did, I probably wouldn't want to fly the hardware that they would provide,
Right.
because knowing how everything works in the ex-Soviet Union countries, nothing will work. The ejection seat will probably malfunction, and yeah, and it's just honestly the operating cost of those things is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're gonna be paying like close to $10,000 per flight hour on that
Ooh.
thing.
Well, for a guy who's making $40,000 a month, before, or for 20 minutes a day before he goes to college, come on, man.
Eh,
So,
I mean, there's probably better uses of money of that type of cash than
sure.
4 hours in a flight or jet per month.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's flash forward a bit here. So, what was the inspiration for you to launch Windscribe?
Right. So I mean, like, I guess the heydays obviously don't last. All that naked lady stuff did come to an end over the years. Especially once the adult entertainment companies that are well known today kind of like emerged. The types of sites that myself and other people in that community were operating. They became irrelevant, right? So the peak of 40,000 per month that only lasted for a couple of years, right? And then it was a steady trajectory to the bottom, and I shut those things down probably in 2009 ish. Like honestly, it's all a bit of a blur, getting old. But so after that point, okay, so the money train is coming to an end. I saw it earlier on as well. Okay, this is obviously not going to last forever. So okay, what else can I do? In a non-porn space, ideally, right? So I've tried a whole series of other projects, since I already had, programming kind of figured out. So I'm like, okay, what else can I build? Try and see if it works. And I built a whole bunch of different things, and stuff related to, kind of like almost like a social network for students to kind of fill their spare time between classes, because that was one of my biggest problems when I was in school. It's kind of like, hey, I have a class at 10 a.m. and then I have a class at 4 p.m. for example, right? And I book a whole bunch of space in between, and I'm not gonna go and study because there was nothing really to study. And it's been like, hey, I would love to like go and like meet people, do stuff together, do some kind of activities, hobbies, or whatever. So I'm like, okay, like let me build a website to do exactly this. And I did. We did like a whole marketing push in Toronto with all the major schools here to kind of like get people to know that it exists. We sponsored a whole bunch of events to get people to come out, meet other people, and then the idea there was for them to start creating their own events, right?
Hmm.
But that
Kind of like
never.
a meetup.com or something like that, but for students, maybe on a smaller
Yeah, like
scale.
a lot more ephemeral and kind of like
Yeah.
it can be like almost like one-to-one or like a small group. It's like, oh hey, I'm down to play tennis between this and this time. Who wants to like play tennis with me, for
Dude,
example?
I thought of something like that a couple of years ago, where you could just, send up alert and say, hey, I'm going to be in Shibuya. I spent a lot of time in Asia, for example, and I'm going to be in Shibuya from this time to this time. Does anybody want to do a language exchange, or does anybody want to grab a beer, or does anybody want to go on a bike ride this weekend? Something like that. It's
Yeah, yeah,
actually,
it was exactly like that. Yeah. So, but everybody was down to come out to events that other people would organize, but nobody wanted to create them themselves, right? So, like our biggest event, like we threw like a big kegger, like free booze. That was like the biggest turnout. I think we had like 1,000 people
college
show up.
students,
Yeah, yeah, I
free
think we had like
booze.
1,000 people. Yeah, free booze. It's like, hey, okay, like so gel together, promote this thing. But it was never meant to be, and yeah, that was promptly shut down after a few months. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's try other things. And like honestly, I don't even remember all the things that I tried, but there were probably close to 20 different projects that I tried between the porn days and when Windscribe over the course of probably like 10 years. Some were marginally successful. Others, were not successful at all. Primarily the second one.
Hmm.
Then I'm like, okay, cool. I'm building all these different projects for myself. Let me maybe I should build projects for others as well. So I put together like a small development company. I think it was called Sparkit. So we were kind of just like a development agency, right? Come in,
Mhm.
we'll quote you, we'll build your project, and have like a steady stream of revenue as opposed to these kind of Hail Marys. So I did do that for a few years, and while working on the very last project under that company, which was like a daily fantasy sport website, we built that out as well. It was pretty novel at the time. That was like when DFS was just like starting, but there was already established, kind of like big companies like well, they exist today, like DraftKings and FanDuel. Those were the biggest two guys at that point. I mean, I think they still are. So we built like a competing product. We had like a very novel scoring algorithm. We were again giving free money to people to come and join on the platform because we built it out, but we were kind of like partners on the platform as well. So and I'm not a sports guy. Like I don't really watch sports at all. I don't follow any sports. So this was not something that was like of any interest to me whatsoever. And when you're doing something that is not interesting to you and you don't see yourself as the user of your own product, it's really hard to succeed. And
Yeah.
what do you know? It didn't, right? So while I was already kind of on that trajectory, it's like, okay, this thing is clearly going down, the usual path. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what actual things do I really know a bunch about, and industries that are out there that are kind of garbage, and the products were at the time are very techy, designed for not the average person, and kind of VPNs kind of came on my radar because I was using VPNs for years before that for various purposes. And at the time, I was using a company called iVPN. They still exist today. And honestly, if you're not a Windscribe user for any reason, I still highly recommend them. They're my second most favorite VPN out there. They kind of like did a good job explaining the product. Their app was very nice. They actually implemented, like a firewall correctly, as opposed to what was the standard back then, which is basically nothing. So the firewall kind of like prevents, leaks in case your VPN disconnects, right? Suddenly, for example, they were the first. I think they were the first ones to actually implement a proper, well-made firewall. I'm like, okay, this product is actually pretty nice, but it did have downsides. So I'm like, okay, we can probably do something better than this, and that's what kind of sparked the idea to do Windscribe.
Awesome. And Windscribe is a free VPN.
Well, it's a freemium VPN, so you can use it for free.
Okay.
Right? You can sign up without any personal information of any kind. It's just literally a username and a password. That's all you need to provide to make an account. For that, we'll give you 2 gigabytes of free data per month, which is resets every month. If you give us an email, we'll give you 10 gigabytes. The idea is if you give us an email, now we have a way to contact you. So now we can send you hilarious emails and get you to convert to our paid offerings, which is what pays for everything, including
Gotcha.
staff salaries, the servers used by free users as well. Yeah, that's kind of the model.
So if I was out in the market for a VPN, what should I be looking for? And why, and ultimately, where this is leading is why
Yeah.
Windscribe?
Right. Well, I can break it down for you very simply. If you ever see an ad for a VPN company anywhere, or a sponsorship on a YouTube channel, you do not choose that VPN company. It's literally as simple as that. And I'll tell you why. What do most VPN companies promise in their YouTube sponsorships? That it's some random sock puppet reviewer is now promoting you a security product that they're reading off a script, or ads that promise you 100% anonymity or 100% anything and bulletproof X and Y and Z. Most of those things are effectively lies and just pure snake oil sales. And that's what I would say vast majority of incumbents in the VPN industry, which I would say is one of the most toxic industries out there, period, are that basically engage in this type of basic snake oil sales. Because I mean, like, if you're resorting to ads and advertising, that inherently involves heavy amount of user tracking, because you can't break even on ads if you don't track your potential leads. It's just literally impossible these days. And what do you know? The advertising, sorry, the advertising companies, the VPN companies that do advertise, if you go on their websites, their own websites are filled with sometimes a dozen of different trackers from the same companies that they claim to protect you from. This includes Facebook, the Google, the various advertising networks whose sole purpose is to track users to sell them stuff, right? And those VPN companies are actively engaging in the same predatory practices that they claim their product solves. To me, this is extremely dishonest and highly hypocritical and honestly just frankly disgusting, right? And I think that's what sets Windscribe apart is we don't advertise, we don't sponsor anyone, we don't have an affiliate program anymore. We won't pay you to promote us, unlike pretty much most other companies, except IVPN. They're still in that good book. They do none of those things either, which is why I still recommend them if you don't want to use Windscribe for whatever reason.
So how
Yeah.
did you get to 43 million active users with no advertising, no affiliate programs? Is it just simply word of mouth and communities?
Well, yeah. So I should add, we did have an affiliate program early on,
Mhm.
and we did discontinue it a few years ago because we figured, hey, this is like very hypocritical for us to also keep an affiliate program. And the reason, or the main reason for discontinuing the affiliate program is who is the biggest user of these affiliate programs? It's this parasitic industry known as the VPN review industry. Those are the marketing websites that if you type in, best VPN, you'll see like a million of those websites ranking VPNs in arbitrary orders, and that's
I,
where,
I hate searching for anything these days because that's what you're going to get. You get these
yeah,
lead collection,
yeah.
digital marketing kind of just, and then you're right. As soon as you go there, instantly you get served up a bunch of stuff from, all the companies in that space that are subscribing to that method of marketing.
Yeah, and I will tell you more. I mean, the despite what they claim that they have, editorial integrity and blah 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 blah, every single one will claim it. Most of those reviews are done by like paid bloggers on per article basis. Like if you actually read most of these reviews, you can clearly tell that this is done by someone who has no idea what they're talking about for
Very
the most part.
generic, kind
Very
of broad.
generic
Yeah.
stuff, and the VPNs are marked but based on a single metric. I would say in 99% of the times is who has the highest CPA. So if I send you a click and they convert, who will pay me the most amount of money?
Right.
And for this reason, there's like one of the biggest VPN review sites is VPN Mentor, which was acquired by Cape Technologies, which also purchased several other VPNs, including ExpressVPN very recently. It's a huge conflict of interest for for the same entity that owns a VPN product to also own one of the biggest VPN review sites. And what do you know? If you go on it, what are the top 3 rated VPNs on it? It's the properties that they own themselves, right? And I guarantee you 99.9% of visitors to those websites don't know any of this. They're just going, oh yeah, that looks great. It's rated 10 out of 10 and it has all these features. Better purchase it. But it's extremely deceptive.
So where do you go? Okay, if you're in the market for VPN or just for simple hosting, for example, and because obviously you don't want to do the top hosting providers or top VPN providers, where do you go to get like real intelligence?
Well, honestly, in our case, if you want to say, hey, is Windscribe any good? Just go sign up for it and use it. We don't ask you for any money. That's why we have a free plan, right? It's not one of these, oh, we have a trial and then maybe we'll give you your money back if you answer these series of questions and then send us a hostage video of yourself next to a wall begging for a refund. You can just use the product, and if you like it, keep using it for free if that's enough for you. And for a lot of people, free usage is still enough, and they don't have to pay us anything. We have people that have been using us for since our inception entirely for free every month, because the 10 gigabytes is enough for them. And if it's not enough, and you were happy with the service that was rendered to you, feel free to upgrade to our paid offerings. But I mean, most of our growth is entirely word of mouth. Like I would say 90% of it. Because I mean, instead of wasting 70% of your revenue on marketing and giving it to the VPN review sites, which in some cases, sorry, are worth more than the VPN services when they're acquired, as was the case with VPN Mentor specifically. It was acquired for more money than one of the biggest VPNs out there at the time, which was a PA8, right? Just think about that. A marketing agency that promotes VPNs costs more money than the VPN, one of the biggest VPN products out there. I mean, that pretty much tells you all you need to know about this particular industry. All right. So that's why we don't participate in any of that anymore. You will not find Windscribe on a lot of these top 10 lists simply because we don't pay people money.
Fair enough. So I mean, and right now you do have 43 million active users. I don't know
that's not exactly accurate. We have 43. Well, it's actually a bit more than that. Registrations that since the inception of the company in terms of actual monthly active users, it's less than that. It's close to, I think it's about 7 million right now.
Okay, still impressive. Where do you go from here?
Well, we have quite a big of a roadmap in front of us. We're working on quite a bit of interesting features internally as well as externally. A lot of this stuff will be available in the coming months. One of the projects that we actually just wrapped up is the in-memory node infrastructure, where all our VPN servers operate entirely without any kind of disk backing, so entirely in RAM. Because I mean, seizures in the VPN space are quite are quite common, because we do have servers in about 69 countries. Some of these countries have very loose laws in terms of what the government can and cannot do, and do they even need a court order, or can just a bunch of dudes show up at a data center and be like, yeah, that server, we're going to take it. And that has happened, multiple times. So the idea behind this type of infrastructure is, when that does happen, and it will happen in the future. I mean, this is just a game of numbers. Once the server sees there's actually nothing on it because everything was in RAM. Once the server's powered down, like all the your entire stack is gone basically, and there's nothing on the disk. So we've actually just wrapped up the deployment of this particular system actually just last week. It's still not fully it's not actually public yet at all. We just briefly mentioned in our Discord channel that this is actually completed. There's going to be a very lengthy kind of technical article that will follow in the next hopefully week or two, that will describe what exactly we've been working on for the last while with that particular system. And we have like a pretty big user-facing roadmap in terms of the features that we can now deploy on this new kind of type of infrastructure.
And this is all proprietary, developed
Uh,
in-house?
yeah, this is all developed in-house. We are open sourcing some of our work. So our clients, for example, everything that's running on your computer, including our Windows, Mac, Linux applications, the browser extensions, those are already open source. You can find the source code for that in our public GitHub. The mobile applications will be open sourced very shortly as well. So the idea is like, hey, here's everything that's running on your physical device. You can see all the code. You can just go and build the app yourself if you really want to modify it to suit your needs. Here's exactly what it does. So there's no hidden anything really. It's everything is above board. We have a series of audits scheduled for the new infrastructure, which will happen closer towards the end of the year, to kind of verify all our claims that we've been making for years, especially in the context of the new infrastructure, which is pretty new. So we want to make sure that we haven't made any kind of like gross mistakes. But
And
yeah.
who's the auditing agency, or which standard are you trying to become compliant with?
So the one with our infrastructure audit is going to be done by a kind of a well-known company that's already done a few VPN audits for other companies. I think they're called Cure 53. And we do have a couple of other audits in the pipeline as well from a few other companies.
Awesome. And then if that doesn't keep you busy enough, you said that you're also the founder of Control D. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Control D is a new in-house project. It's built entirely by the Windscribe team. We're currently in the process of also like splitting it into its own separate legal entity and as a separate standalone company. But currently, it's basically a kind of like a sub-brand of Windscribe. Control D is a DNS service, so it's not a VPN service. There's no applications to install like on VPN, right? It operates at the DNS layer. So when you sign up, there's a web panel. We'll give you your own private DNS resolver. You set that up on any device that you want. In fact, it's compatible with pretty much every single internet connected device out there. You can put it on your router, you can put it on your phone, you can put it on your computer, you can put it on your smart toaster if you want. Anything that literally can talk to the internet, you can set this up on. And in terms of functionality, there's some overlap with what you can do over the VPN. So people use VPNs for, let's say, like geo restriction unblocking, for example, right? You'll connect to a server in United Kingdom, and then now you can watch BBC iPlayer, for example. That's like a common use case for VPNs just outside of the realm of privacy. Right, so you can do very similar stuff with Control D, except there's no applications for you to install for you. You can just toggle the service on, and we would just browse normally. You would navigate to their website or open up their app, and that app or that website will see you in the UK and only that particular service and nothing else. And then you can create very unique browsing profiles where like different services can see you in different places all at the same time. There's also the privacy component where it'll block ads and trackers if you'd like. It'll block porn if you'd like. It'll block gambling websites if you want to like stop gambling and control your urges. You can use it for parental controls, so you can create a schedule saying like, hey, no internet on my kids' devices between this and this hour. And social networks never work except for like on a Sunday when they've finished all their homework or something like that. Games don't work either unless they've been very good and finished all their homework as well. So you can use it for that. You can use it for personal productivity controls. If you need to get stuff done, you can block, Instagram or whatever services that you end up wasting time on. You can get those automatically blocked, or you can choose to block them at a specific time so you can get stuff done.
Is this available now?
Yeah, no, that's available right now. We're just emerging from beta. It's actually been available for the last year, but very kind of stealthy. We have not marketed it. We have not promoted it. There's the only people that know about it that just kind of like discovered it again by word of mouth. And we're just prepping up for a big kind of like marketing push for this particular project. Once we release one of the few remaining features that we feel, well, not we feel, like we've obviously spoken to the current users, and they requested certain things to exist. So we're basically actively working on making those things exist before we kind of emerge into the great beyond and get more eyes on it.
And how are you going to charge for it?
So there's two plans, all right? It's you can check it out right now, controlD.com. So there's two plans. There's the one called Some Control that basically gives you some control of your browsing activity, and by that we mean you can effectively, that's just a blocking only plan. So you can do anything related to blocking, like ads and trackers, porn, block this service, block that service. So basically, it will prevent certain things from loading on whichever device you have it configured on at whatever schedule that you like. And then the other plan is it kind of interfaces with Windscribe infrastructure with all the servers that Windscribe operates in the 69 countries where we actually have dedicated servers in, where you can unblock content through these machines, kind of like a VPN, except without the use of any applications at all. So there's nothing installed on any device.
Awesome. Hey, I got to ask you, I mean, because we've been talking here for about 45 minutes, and you've run me through a very high level kind of overview of maybe 5 or 6 different businesses, but obviously you've been involved in more. What advice would you give to, let's just break this down into 2 areas. One, to aspiring entrepreneurs, and then 2, anybody who's concerned about internet security or cybersecurity.
Right. Well, I mean, as a general thing, in terms of just general entrepreneurial spirit, I would say do things that you act for yourself. Like, consider yourself as the customer of whatever that you're building. If you're building something for that is for some random hypothetical person that is not you, uh, the, you're probably going to fail. You have to actively enjoy the subject or the area that you want to pursue, and be your own customer and use your own product pretty much on daily basis, because while using your own product, which I do obviously for everything recently that I've done, you'll notice things. You'll be like, oh, this sucks, or that sucks, I should change this, I should change that, oh, that's a little bit annoying. You're constantly going to be iterating on the things that you've put out, because the first thing you're going to put out is probably going to be trash, right? But through rapid iteration, you can polish it to be the product that you probably envisioned. And the best way to do it is to use it yourself. And constant self-education. You can literally learn everything that there is to learn about literally anything online without going to school. Like, you honestly, unless you want, unless you get into like medicine, or like build bridges or something like that, you don't need to go to school. Like, especially for anything computer science related, you can learn all of this. There's so many great tools out there. There's so many courses that you can take. A lot of them are free. You can literally, if you're willing to learn, you can learn literally anything, and then use those skills to, to improve whatever you're working on, or even build it yourself.
That's some great advice, and the converse holds true as well for me. I've used products or services in particular that are so clunky or clumsy, and you just know that the developers or the product officers or whoever's running the show they don't use it, because if they
Yeah.
used it, they would realize that the UI is dysfunctional, or it's just way too clunky, and it's kind of maddening, man. So I like that you got to eat your own cooking, and you got to be passionate about it. You got to be into it. Now back to the security side. Okay, we're all consumers out here. Um, what should we be concerned about?
I mean, security is a very general subject. It all depends on kind of like what your, I guess, attack vector is. Security for someone, for like a regular Joe Bob living in the United States or Canada, or Western Europe, is a different thing than for a whistleblower, or some kind of dissident in China or in Russia, or anywhere really where there's an oppressive regime, and you're actively trying to disrupt it, or work against it, or spread some type of information that the regime doesn't want you to spread. Like, the stakes are a lot higher if it's the latter case, right?
If
So
you're
I
if
mean,
you're Edward Snowden, and you probably need something more than just the run of the mill, virus blocker.
yeah, and honestly, a VPN is also like, if your only defense is a VPN, you will have a very bad time in jail, because a VPN alone will not do a whole lot of stuff. It's like security is more of a mindset rather than, and a VPN is just one of the tools that you should have, right? I mean, I would say it is mandatory to have it, but if that's the only tool, you will have a bad time. You have to kind of like, you have to understand the approach of the adversary, like how you're doing something that they don't like. What are the ways that they can de-anonymize you or track you down, right? And your IP address is just one small piece of the puzzle, right? If you just change your IP address and you keep using your same emails and same browsers that have the same cookies to do something that they don't like, all of that will come back to you, and it's fairly trivial to find people like that, especially if you have access to internet service providers, their logs, and other companies that you can just subpoena and get all this information about a particular person, account, or anything like that.
Okay, but for the Joe Bobs of the world, what should we be doing?
Honestly, for the Joe Bobs of the world, I would check out our blog. We actually have quite a few articles exactly on this topic in terms of how you should model your threats and what you should be doing at the bare minimum, even if you are just a Joe Bob, right? So I would literally just check out our blog. There's a lot of easygoing articles that we've written. Our communication style is very unlike most other VPNs. It's not just dry, boring information written by a marketer. Myself, I write quite a few very technical articles, and I like to throw in jokes and funny examples. And there's a lot of great information there, to be honest.
Awesome, man. I'll put links to as much as I can in the show notes. Hey, Yegor, I really enjoyed this conversation. You've got a tremendous amount of experience, a very interesting background, and I'm sure that you're probably got about another 10, 15 good business launches in you as well. So I hope to keep in touch and wish you and the team of Windscribe and Control D the greatest success.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was nice chatting to you.
Hello, welcome to Secure Talk, your trusted source of information on the latest threats, trends, tools, and technology related to cybersecurity and compliance.